Speaker.
I call Jono Naylor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is, I think, a very great opportunity to be able to come and talk about something that is of such significance to New Zealand, it is such significance to our nation that we need to spend some significant time talking about it and ensuring that we have a good process to make sure that we do have a good decision at the end of the process. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important debate. It is not something you would do once every parliamentary term. It is not something you would do every even 10, 20, 30, 40 years. But it is something that should or perhaps could be done every 100 years or so, and it's 1902 since this flag was put into place. And so probably is about a good time for us to stop and ponder what is the future of our flag in New Zealand. The last 100 years has seen some significant changes in our country, good changes, a lot of them, some of them different at different times. But if a flag is to be a unifying symbol of sovereignty, of our heritage and our values, from time to time, albeit every 100 years or so, perhaps it is appropriate for us to have another look at it and say, does this still reflect our heritage, our sovereignty, our values and the makeup of our nation? Mr. Speaker, it's an important debate, but it's also an emotional debate because, as has been said by many speakers, this flag is one that has been fought under. It is one that people have died under. It is a flag that has been draped over the shoulders of gold medalists and has been raised while the anthem's been played at many different occasions. It's a flag that's been flown at half-mast on sombre occasions. And there is a lot of emotion that is attached around those different events when the flag is involved. And so, Mr. Speaker, we need to be careful in our process and how we go about it and how we address any potential change to it. Mr. Speaker, it is also a potentially divisive debate, and we've already seen from what's been said in the House this afternoon that there are differing views even on the process, but also differing views on what the flag of New Zealand should look like. Mr. Speaker, if I may coin a phrase from the Australian State of Origin series, it's the kind of issue that would pit mate against mate. It's the kind of thing that there will be much debate over the barbecues and in the pubs and in the school classrooms. And Mr. Speaker, because it's a divisive debate, it is something that we need to handle with care. It is something that we shouldn't necessarily lump in with a general election. It's something that is deserving of having that singular focus in terms of the way that we address this issue. Mr. Speaker, before really thinking about this, I asked myself a number of questions, and those are questions that I asked of myself, but they were also questions that other people have mentioned while I've been speaking to them as I go out and about my business. The first question, Mr. Speaker, is why are we having this debate? Is it really worth the emotional trauma that seems to be going along with it? Is it really worth the potential divisiveness? And Mr. Speaker, the answer is yes, because there has been a growing level of interest across our nation to debate this issue, for people to have their say about whether or not we should retain the flag that we have or whether we should change it. And so, Mr. Speaker, it is worth it. It is something that reflects, I think, our society as it is, when people are questioning all sorts of things from whether or not we should keep the monarchy or otherwise, and I don't want to get sidetracked into that debate today. But while those questions are resounding around our communities, it is absolutely worth us having this debate and this discussion, and whatever the outcome of this process, whether it be that we keep the existing flag or we change the flag, we will be better for it, I believe, as a nation, because we will have really wrestled with the issues that surround our national heritage, our national values, and how we reflect that through a flag. And so I asked myself the question, why are people looking at this now? Why is it an important decision for people to be saying now, what's so wrong with our current flag? And one of the big things that I hear from so many people is that in one corner of the flag is the Union Jack, and that only reflects a very small part now of our New Zealand heritage. I know for me, my English heritage looks and can find St George's Cross, and my Scottish heritage looks and finds the St Andrew's Cross. the bit of me that's a bit Irish can't find anything in there to celebrate, and that's probably pretty much reflected, I think, from anybody with Irish descent when it comes to the Union Jack. But I think, Mr. Speaker, that while it is that we have the Union Jack there are some people that would do it. It reflects only one part of our culture. Yeah, absolutely a small part. We hear at the moment just how much we have people from other nations, not simply the United Kingdom. This New Zealand place is not the United Kingdom. It is in fact a plethora of people from all sorts of cultures, where there's nothing in our flag currently that, for example, really signifies anything of significance to do with Māori. But Mr. Speaker, I'm not here to argue the fors and against of this flag, but merely to highlight that a number of people have shown some issues with the flag, and therefore it is worthy of debate. I find it really interesting, Mr. Speaker, actually, that now New Zealand First want to talk about it, but when it came to being participants in the cross-party meeting that we had about it, they were nowhere to be seen. They didn't want to be part of it then, but now they want to shout across the House and talk about it. I find that a little bizarre. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, if I can possibly hear myself over the rant from the other side of the thing, I might be able to carry on with what I really want to say. Mr. Speaker, the question I then ask myself, is this the right process? Because as this is such a significant process, Mr. Speaker, it needs to be done formally. It needs to be done carefully, and for all the reasons that have been outlined already in the House today, Mr. Speaker, it needs to be done respectfully. And so, Mr. Speaker, we invited all of the parties to be a part of it, and we've come up with a process which I think is one that is going to really bring out the very best result that we can. Mr. Speaker, I think that the approach that we're taking is the right one. I know there was some discussion, for example, about the voting system that would be used, and I'm glad to see that we are using a preferential system now. I think that was a very good part of what came out of the cross-party discussion. I've got a bit of experience with preferential voting. We had STV in my days as Mayor of Palmerston North, and it served me pretty well, I have to say, at least on the one occasion that we did have STV when I was running for election. But I think it's good because it ensures that whatever alternative comes up with, it is something that more than 50% of people agree is better than any other option that is on the table. And Mr. Speaker, I think that's a very good process. I'm not normally one in favour of referendums. When we had a lot of talk during the election, should we have binding citizens-initiated referendums and the like, I wasn't very happy about the idea. Because so often when you have a binding referendum of any kind, the question can be very much flawed and lead to a level of ambiguity. But Mr. Speaker, the questions that we have that are related to these two referendums, I think really clearly point us in the right direction to ensure that we will get a very positive result for New Zealand. Mr. Speaker, I do want to address the order of the two questions and the order of the two referendum that has been sort of disputed, I guess, from the other side of the House. I'm concerned that people don't want to engage in the debate before they simply write it off, and that's what's being proposed by having this yes or no up front. I, for one, have not made up my mind as to whether or not I believe we should change the flag or not, quite simply because I don't know what the alternative would be. And so there are many, many people I know who are out there who have yet to make up their mind whether or not they believe we should change the flag, because they're waiting to see what the alternative would be. And by putting a yes or no choice up front eliminates them from the equation. And so, Mr. Speaker, we have got the process right. We are moving in the right direction. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I just want to touch on the point that people have said there's more important issues right now for us to discuss. And Mr. Speaker, if I was to say, is this the most important issue for New Zealand right now? Of course the answer would be no. But I have complete confidence in this government, Mr. Speaker, to be able to, while it is still working hard to improve the educational outcomes of New Zealand, which we are doing, while we are working hard on delivering better public services, which we are doing, and while we are continuing to work towards better health targets, which we are achieving, we can also cope with this issue, and that is something that we are seeking to do. So, Mr Speaker, it's no doubt of no surprise to you in summary that I absolutely support this process. It is a good process, it is a healthy process, and one that I believe will deliver, whatever the result is, the right result for New Zealand, for our flag going forward. Thank you.
Dr. Kennedy.